Rights Commission because there aren't any consequences unless someone makes a complaint. But she knows it's a difficult battle.
That landlord may have said that to multiple people, all of which who went, oh, okay, or who were so desperate to get a place and in such a hurry to get a place, they didn't have the time to take somebody to human rights and get an outcome that benefited them, and so they don't act on it.
Alexis Dingwell says she has also been refused housing because of her toddler, but she has few options. She's been on the public housing wait list for years, and when she applied for a rent supplement, she was denied.
That's really all I can do is hope that we find a place and we don't end up on the streets or something.
For now, both mothers don't know where else to turn for support, so they just hope for an accepted application. Nicola Sagan, CBC News, Halifax.
All of the de-designated tent encampments in HRM, including Grand Parade, are now vacant. The city says the last remaining individual living in front of City Hall has left the site. They agreed to accept one of the province's indoor shelter locations Wednesday night. The fences that were put up at both Grand Parade and Victoria Park will remain while cleanup and remediation takes place. Both are expected to reopen to the public by early summer. There are currently 4 designated encampment sites within the city. As of Wednesday, 44 people were living in them. A Dartmouth company's small-scale wind turbine received a powerful funding boost today from the federal government. Recent power outages in the province have some Nova Scotians looking for options to stay charged up. Shine Turbine is hoping to attract customer interest locally after having success south of the border. Here is the CBC's Kyle Moore.
It took 4 years to generate this 3-pound, 1-liter size water bottle turbine, but despite its size, it can generate up to 40 watts of power in wind speeds between 8 kilometers an hour and up to 45 kilometers an hour.
We just naturally happened to find that there was a real need for wind power in the consumer space, quite specifically the outdoor market initially, just for handheld device charging.
The original plan for Adelaide and her company was to design a wind turbine to generate power for high-rise buildings, but the timeline to market proved to be too costly and time-consuming. So they scaled back, and so far that move has been a success.
We launched Shine via Kickstarter several years ago, and we sold 500 units in 5 days, and we sold out completely after reaching over $200,000 in revenues. We had decided to cap the sales then and get into production before we really started our sales again.
The number of recent power outages in the province has also made the Shine turbine attractive, and today the company received federal funding.
I am thrilled to announce an investment of nearly $400,000 through ACOA's Regional Economic Growth through Innovation Program to help continue to grow and do your amazing work.
The money will allow the company to invest and package the turbine in Dartmouth for people already using the product, like Chris Surratt, who is the CEO of a marketing company for the outdoors. It's money well spent.
It's light, it's portable, and it charges everything from our drones to our cameras to our cell phones to our headlamps to our GPS units.
The cost for one of these units is around $400. So far, the product has been sold mostly in the U.S., with hopes of generating local interest in the months to come. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Meanwhile, the federal government is expanding a program that helps people in rural communities make green upgrades to their homes. Ottawa announced $9.5 million to the Clean Foundation's Clean Energy Finance Program. The program is through the Green Municipal Fund and has been around for 8 years, with a number of Nova Scotia municipalities already taking part. Through the fund, Ross Bonnell says he was able to get a loan to add solar panels to his home.
I think there's a certain satisfaction that comes to some of us from as we are trying to do something for ourselves. Call it trying to be more self-sufficient, trying to do something personally in terms of global warming and reducing carbon. So there's a satisfaction that comes, I think, from that.
The program uses a property-assessed clean energy financing model. This means homeowners can gradually repay their loans at low rates within their existing property levies. Maximum loan amounts vary from $10,000 to $40,000. The president of the Craft Brewers Association of Nova Scotia is welcoming 2 changes recently announced by the federal government. Ottawa is capping the excise duty on alcohol and cutting it in half for the first 15,000 hectoliters of beer produced. Andrew Tanner says last year was a particularly tough one for the industry in Nova Scotia.
I describe it to a lot of friends. If you were in Quebec or Wisconsin thinking about coming to Nova Scotia, you'd probably read the news and think, wow, the place is either on fire or it's flooding, so we'll maybe postpone that trip. And so that certainly hurt us. And it seemed like every single weekend throughout July and August, at least, it was rainy. So, patios weren't full of people like they normally were. And, all we can do is hope for a better 2024.
And I'll talk to Andrew Tanner, president of the Craft Brewers Association of Nova Scotia, about the impact of the changes from Ottawa, what they'll have. That's our newsmaker just after 6:30. Some nice mild temperatures today and some sun, Ryan.
Yeah, lovely, lovely day for the western and central areas of the province today. That's where temperatures were warmest because we had the sun breaking through, and yeah, double-digit highs, Keji and down towards the Shelburne area, awfully close in the metro area. Again, cooler towards the north and east where the clouds were a little more dominant, but we will all see a little taste of sun over the next couple of days. We are watching a system, a weak one that's passing to our north tonight, maybe an isolated shower risk with that, but what we're really keeping an eye on over the next 24 hours is this system here, which is working into the Great Lakes. Now, for the most part, that is going to be diving to our south, but close enough that by Friday morning, we're all draped in clouds. No question about that. We'll see a little bit of some patchy freezing drizzle chances tomorrow morning along the Northumberland shore and into Cape Breton. So be mindful of that. This system, again, for the most part, passing to our south, but will be close enough that it brings some showers mixed with some wet flakes for Halifax, eastern county of Halifax, and up into the Cobequid Bay area, the valley, and certainly southwest of that line. The further and closer you are to the Shelburne and Yarmouth areas, the better chance we'll have of seeing that precipitation on Friday. By Friday evening, though, it's starting to depart. And so, yeah, because of that cloud, those cooler temps in the mix tomorrow. Looks like temperatures will range from around 2 to 5 degrees, and through the southwest will be a little bit warmer across the north and east, just outside of that system. Now, that will move out, and the good news is for Saturday, a bit cloudy to start, but popping into the sunshine into the afternoon. That'll bump our temperatures up, and it looks like Saturday will be widespread 4 to 8 degrees, and likely today, much like today, we'll likely see a couple of double digits inland, especially where we get into that sunshine into the afternoon. Keeping an eye on our next system beyond that, which will move in throughout the day on St. Patrick's Day on Sunday. Quiet to start, but if you are thinking about heading out and taking part in some of the festivities, be mindful that this green for St. Patrick's Day means rain, and we will see that rain crawling in from west to east throughout the day on Sunday. We'll have more on this and your complete 7-day forecast looking ahead to the start of spring next week, Amy, coming up.
Well, at least your map matches St. Patrick's Day, right?
That's what we're trying to do here, right? Yes.
Color coordinate.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, batteries have a key role in the transition away from fossil fuels. Researchers are pushing to make more effective batteries that charge faster, cost less, and hold more power. And there are plans for a new battery lab at Dalhousie University in Halifax. The CBC's Brett Ruskin has the details.
This new battery lab will be installed here at Dalhousie University in the building you see behind me here. Now, we have video from the University of Michigan that officials here at Dalhousie say it'll look kind of like that once all of the equipment is installed. And they're going to use that equipment to try to test out and tweak different recipes for chemical compounds that you find in batteries. Batteries that are used in everything from your tablet to your Tesla. And speaking of Tesla, that electrical vehicle company has invested a lot into Dalhousie University's kind of battery research program, but also specifically into this lab. Other companies as well have made investments, and so the federal government saw that commitment from industry, and yesterday kicked in an additional $5 million to this project to help get it off the ground. So once it is in place here at Dalhousie, the researchers are going to be testing out different compounds, different recipes for what could go into batteries. We use a lot of lithium in batteries, but that's not necessarily the easiest or most abundant substance substance in the world to power a battery. We might look at sodium or other substances like that to see what could make an efficient and effective and perhaps a cheaper battery formula. So here is Michael Metzger. He's one of the leads at this project. Here's what he had to say about some of their goals.
So it's a prototyping center for high quality battery cells. And it will allow us to test new materials that go into battery cells. We will have a high flexibility in trying, these new cell chemistries, as we say. And ultimately, it will, enable us to improve battery technology and really bring, these innovations that we make in the laboratory and other researchers across Canada too, into real-world prototype cells that can be handed over to industry.
Now, not only is this just for academics and researchers here at Dalhousie University, but local startups in the tech or the battery sector can actually come in once it's all up and running and use the facilities here on a cost recovery basis. And so some of the facilities, for example, include a dry room. Now, this room sucks the moisture, all the humidity out of the air to allow better testing conditions, because some of the chemical compounds being used and perfected actually could respond and react to the water that's naturally in the air. Here's Michael Metzger once again.
Our air often contains high contents of moisture, especially in the summer here in Nova Scotia, right? So that's why we need the dry room to really remove all the moisture from the air so that it cannot react anymore with the battery active materials. It's a real requirement for making high quality prototype cells.
Now, these types of tests and tweaking and finding different recipes for batteries, it's being done right now, but every time an experiment happens, researchers have to send that experiment down south to the United States or overseas to China to have it verified, to have it tested, and then bring it back here. So this is the first time in Canada that this type of equipment, this type of process will be available. So if you're trying to perfect the recipe for a great cake, it helps to have the oven in the kitchen as opposed to on a different continent. So the timeline for this new battery lab here, looking at a couple of years before the equipment is fully installed here at Dalhousie University. Brett Ruskin, CBC News, Halifax.
It's still unclear whether a Cape Breton coal mine will reopen after it was permitted this week to resume year-round production. Morian Resources, which has a royalty stake in the mine, says any potential reopening requires more than the government's decision to lift a stop work order. The company says a resumption of operations depends on improving the regulatory situation. The Donkin mine has been closed and 130 workers laid off since a roof fall last July. Morian says it's working with the mine's owner, Cameron Cole, to resume production. They could not say when that would happen. The Atlantica Party says it is preparing to file for voluntary deregistration with Elections Nova Scotia effective April 30th. In a statement, Kyle Woodbury says the move to end the party is necessary because of a shortage of volunteer support and not because of financial challenges. The Atlantica Party was initially registered in 2010 and has never run a full slate of candidates or elected any member of the provincial legislature. Well, if you've ever been in a chicken coop, you know it's a noisy place to be. Now, a Dalhousie professor is using AI to see if he can help people in agriculture understand just what all the clucking is about. Felicia Chandler has that story.
These chickens have something to say, but what exactly? Well, that's what Suresh Nithirajan wants to know. For the past year, he's been working with chickens trying to figure out their foul language.
Even among human beings, when we communicate, there is a lot of communication gaps. We tend to misinterpret what others say. So communication is a key for better understanding each other. What if we can understand the language of farm animals such as chickens so that we can improve their quality of life when they are here in the farm?
During a span of about 16 weeks, he put hundreds of chickens to the test, learning what their vocalizations and actions really mean.
Every day we collected a bunch of data. We stressed them with visual cues like opening an umbrella suddenly. We also played dog barking sound to stress them out via audio stress. We were trying to understand how different types of stresses play a role and how they communicate, how they express themselves.
Neethi Rajan says when faced with all of these trials, like the dog barking, the chickens had a lot to say. Not with words, but with things like pauses between their sounds, the pitch and tone, and the energy behind it.
Sometimes a group of chickens talk among themselves, express their satisfaction, contentment, frustration, even if there is a delay in the availability of feed, or there is a change in the hygiene protocol or the lighting intensity, they can actually express that through the vocalizations.
After collecting the sounds, their chirps, clucks, and squawks get fed into an artificial intelligence program. The AI can highlight patterns and how often certain noises are made. And that helps Neethi Rajan decipher when and what chickens use certain sounds for.
So we look at these modulations of sound using algorithms based on the context. Then we collaborate with animal behavior scientists, ethologists, to create a spectrum in terms of understanding the cognition. What zone in terms of, is it positive, negative, or neutral emotion?
Neethi Rajan says he hopes that by deciphering chicken language and in turn their needs, he can help farmers and others in the industry improve animal welfare.
We're also looking at extending to other species. Sometimes dairy cows are passive aggressive. They do vigorous licking to demonstrate their dislike. Especially during calving period, they need a little more space. So they try to tell in different ways, through whining, through making specific calls. So we also look at those very, very subtle, smaller cues and signs along with the vocalization to develop new ways of, hey, you know what, at least 3 to 4 hours before calving period, let the cow enjoy its own space during the birthing process. So that's the kind of strategies we would be able to develop and advise to the farmers.
Neethi Rajan says his research will be ongoing, and he'll continue to work with chickens and other farm animals, deciphering the code that is their speech until he's cracked it. Felicia Chandler, CBC News, Halifax.
Coming up, pregnant women and new mothers in Gaza are facing harsh conditions, according to aid officials. CBC News has been tracking the number of measles cases across the country, and they're rising. There's a look at Carney Lake in Halifax. Ryan is up next with his weather forecast. We're back after this. So not bad having double digits in the middle of March.
Yeah. I mean, we should be around 3 degrees this time of year, so double digits are gravy for this this time of year for sure. And you know, they don't happen every day, so a day like today, no doubt was nice, but should be back on tap, at least the potential to see some pockets of double digits again on Saturday. Widespread mid to high single digits, which is good. Let's walk you through it and show you first and foremost, in case you missed it earlier, there are our highs for today. And yes, Caribou Point, that station there, a little cool, but certainly warmer than that for inland areas of Pictou County and into the New Glasgow area, no question. You can see 5 degrees there at Antigonish and 4 degrees in Sydney. 4 degrees in Ingonish Beach, just one at the airport site there at Port Hawkesbury. It certainly a bit cool there, but yeah, as we look at temperatures out there right now, you can see still 1 at Port Hawkesbury, 3 in Sydney, and yeah, we've got temps around 6 degrees in the Halifax area, so still a fine evening out there as the sun does get set to set indeed. Now, as we look at the winds, relatively light out there, still got a bit of as a result of that wind, bit of an onshore flow happening across the province right now. So yeah, relatively light winds, another win for today for sure. Radar showing the potential for a couple of isolated showers here that have sailed through western areas with this cloud cover. They're pretty isolated and won't be lasting long, but those are edging into the Lunenburg area and pushing up towards the 101 right now. We are looking at more widespread showers here for New Brunswick. That's tied to this low here, which is sailing off to the north. Won't be a factor for us. Moving forward, it's going to be this low here, which is gaining steam in through the Great Lakes right now. That's going to be our weather maker as we move into tomorrow, mainly for Yarmouth, Shelburne, South Shore. Well, we'll time it out for you in just a sec. First, let's show you temps across the country. Double digits in parts of Alberta today. A bit of a cool down in through the Great Lakes after a very warm stretch for the GTA there. And you can see where that jet stream keeping those temps off to the south on the southern side of that low pressure system, which is heading in for us. Tonight, temperatures are going to be dropping into anywhere from 0 to -3. Those winds are going to continue to be light. Watch for a couple of isolated fog patches setting up. We will be looking at the potential for a bit of freezing drizzle as well tomorrow morning. Cape Breton and the Northumberland Shore region edging down into the Eastern Shore region as well. You folks, the greatest risk of some of that freezing drizzle, but then you're dry for the rest of the day as this system will be working its way in across the south and west. Now, this is showing a lot of snow, but note the temperatures are going to be above the freezing mark. So while this is showing snow, I'm anticipating that it will be falling as rain with likely those flakes mixing in at times, but no accumulation. Maybe inland higher terrain areas might just see the grass get coated a little bit, but not expecting this to be a huge headache by any stretch of the imagination, though will certainly make things wet on the roads for tomorrow. If you're heading along the 101 or traveling anywhere in through the southwest of the province for tomorrow afternoon, be mindful of that. That system will then sail out. Now we are looking at temperatures across Cape Breton tomorrow ranging from 4, 5, and 6 degrees. The winds are going to continue to be light for tomorrow for Cape Breton and the Northumberland Eastern Shore. A fine day here indeed. And note the bit of a southwest flow tomorrow, so a nicer setup for places like Caribou Point. Now, as we look into the Fundy and Valley region, we are looking at temperatures ranging between 5 and 6 degrees. And again, had to draw a line somewhere. I picked Kentville, but could see maybe a couple of isolated showers or a flake as far as east as Windsor tomorrow. We are looking at the South Shore region. This is, again, our best chance of seeing those showers and flakes, and the Halifax area as well. Looks like that could skirt up towards Sheet Harbour along the coast later tomorrow into the evening. Saturday, there we go. I mean, temps looking really nice indeed. Will be ranging between 5 and 8 and even 9 degrees across a good portion of the province on Saturday, so looking very nice indeed. Here's how it plays out. The system moves out. Saturday, maybe an isolated shower in the morning. There's that sun into the afternoon. That'll help to bump us up temperature-wise. High pressure moves out. We welcome St. Patrick's Day with, yes, that wet weather. And as we mentioned earlier, green for St. Patrick's Day in this case is not great. That is the rain, which will be moving in. First is showers, then rain through the evening into the overnight. Into Monday, just an isolated shower chance, but some sunshine into the afternoon. And we'll welcome spring with some quiet weather for mid next week. Amy.
That's a good start to spring.
Yeah, I think so. We'll take that as a win.
We sure will. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Up next, I'll talk with Andrew Tanner, president of the Craft Brewers Association of Nova Scotia, and I'll ask about 2 recent changes made by Ottawa and what they mean to his industry. That's our newsmaker. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News. Ottawa recently announced 2 new measures to help small craft brewers. One is a 2-year, 2% cap on the excise duty, which was set to increase to 4.7% on April 1st. And another, brewers will only have to pay half of the duty on the first 15,000 hectoliters of beer they produce. Andrew Tanner is founder of Salt Box Brewing in Mahone Bay and president of the Craft Brewers Association of Nova Scotia. So prior to this announcement, what was the mood like among the brewers in the province?
Not the best. We were in essence rallying to have brewers who had MPs in their backyard to start walking documentation into those MP offices and requesting meetings with them to argue and try and have them understand what craft brewers, at least in Nova Scotia, do for the economy and why it was a bad idea to increase the excise tax.
Well, what about these changes now? What will they mean for people in your industry?
Well, it literally will just avoid that 4.7% increase that we were going to face. So it literally just means that people will be able to continue on with their current operations. We've all been facing increased input costs and so on, and not an overly great 2023 summer. So we're status quo, so to speak.
So no changes to the price of beer on the patio this summer?
I think overall craft brewers in Nova Scotia feel that the price of beer in Nova Scotia has hit sort of a plateau. We don't want to see beer pricing increases, but like any other industry, currently we're obviously faced with those input cost increases and labor cost increases, and that's got to come from somewhere. If it doesn't come from the margins that we have.
Well, how would you describe the craft brewing scene here? Is there any room for growth, or have you hit your peak? Or
I would say the number of breweries has probably sort of plateaued. I think we've seen a few breweries close, probably as a result of sort of post-COVID issues and so on. But certainly craft beer in Nova Scotia continues to grow, our market share continues to grow, which is certainly exciting for all of us, that's for sure.
You talk about expenditures and the challenges they bring. What other challenges have you been facing in recent years?
Everything from the retail sales markup. It's in essence 5% of everything we sell, and we would obviously like to see that looked at. We want the government to take a holistic view of the industry. We want them to see that we're not just another industry complaining about taxes and complaining about markups and so on. We're bringing a lot back to our local communities, whether you're in HRM or Tattamagush or Cape Breton somewhere. We're doing a lot for the local economies. We're employing a lot of people. We're bringing a lot of value from a tourism perspective as well. So we just want the government to understand that, and we're working towards that, certainly.
And I understand the weather last year was also difficult for your sales.
Yeah, I describe it to a lot of friends. If you were in Quebec or Wisconsin thinking about coming to Nova Scotia, you'd probably read the news and think, wow, the place is either on fire or it's flooding, so we'll maybe postpone that trip. And so that certainly hurt us, and it seemed like every single weekend throughout July and August, at least, it was rainy. So patios weren't full of people like they normally were, and all we can do is hope for a better 2024.
Now, the cap on the excise duty runs until 2026. Is that long enough?
It's long enough in the sense that hopefully over the next couple of years we can convince the government to truly look at that tax and look at reforming that tax. It's been a substantially long time since it's been looked at. I think we'll be working hard to convince our MPs to take that to Ottawa and hopefully convince them to do a reform of that tax.
All right. Well, Andrew Tanner, thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Coming up, a total solar eclipse will happen over parts of the Maritimes next month. But how can you view it safely? Doctors in Gaza are warning about the harmful impact the war is having on pregnant women and new mothers. A recent UN report says women and newborns are disproportionately bearing the brunt of the conflict. Chris Brown has the details, but first a warning about the disturbing images and information in the story.
After years of trying for a baby, Ala Jabbar is 8 months pregnant with her first child. Displaced and trying to survive in a camp in Rafah, she spoke to a videographer working for CBC News. My baby's weight is low because there's no fresh or healthy food, she said. I have low blood pressure from malnutrition that causes me to faint. The UN says on average there is only one toilet for 340 people in camps throughout the Gaza Strip, and expectant mothers aren't drinking water to minimize the need to visit them. The doctor said, "I'm dehydrated," Ala told us. "I've caught infections and bacteria from the state of the toilets." When the time comes to give birth, she can only hope it will be less excruciating than it was for Nerman Abu Saif. The 37-year-old gave birth in November by C-section, but anesthetic was in short supply. "I only had half of the regular amount of anesthesia," she said. She was discharged after less than a day because the hospital needed the bed for someone else, forcing her to return to a dirty, crowded shelter. In a recent report, UNICEF said the babies of 5,500 Palestinian women who will give birth in March are at risk of dying due to a lack of access to pre- and postnatal care, and in part because the anxiety of trying to survive in a war zone is leading to premature births. Dr. Hina Chima is an American obstetrician who's volunteering in Rafah's only functioning maternity hospital. What she's seen has horrified her.
There are only 5 labor beds, and they're delivering between 70 to 100 patients every single day. I've been seeing so much more stillbirth, and everybody, all the OB staff here, is talking about how much that rate has increased.
Supplies for newborns are scarce and expensive, especially diapers. So at this workshop that used to make wedding dresses, seamstresses sew together leftover cotton wool and nylon to produce passable substitutes. It's a small bit of resiliency, but Gaza's infants and mothers will need far more if they're to have a fighting chance. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
The federal government says it has ordered a national security review of the popular app TikTok last September. The review was prompted by the company's plan to expand business in Canada. Ottawa says it's not related to recent efforts by U.S. lawmakers to ban the popular social media platform. There are concerns about TikTok's parent company and its ties to the Chinese government. Last year, Canada banned the app from government-issued devices due to security concerns. The Federal Privacy Commissioner is also investigating the company's collection and use of personal information. Measles cases are continuing to rise across parts of the country. CBC News is tracking the increasing number of new infections and the concerns it is raising. The majority of cases are in Quebec, where many appear to have been spread within the community. Here's Lauren Pelly with the details.
A cluster of measles cases in Montreal has officials on high alert, now at 14 infections.
We've seen that the level of coverage of vaccination is not enough for us.
Quebec launched vaccination clinics at multiple hospitals this week. Provincial officials estimate thousands of kids could be at risk since some schools have dangerously low immunization rates.
In Montreal, there are some schools that are very low, under 50, under 40, and even some under 30. So those are places that are really at risk to have a big outbreaks of measles.
More cases are popping up in Ontario as well. An adult in the province's cottage country got infected from an unknown source, while a child in Hamilton fell ill following a trip overseas.
When there are outbreaks, obviously it makes it that more critical for people to be staying on top of the vaccinations, particularly childhood vaccinations.
In 2017, close to 9 in 10 Canadian kids had both doses of the measles vaccine by their 7th birthday. But by 2021, that dropped to roughly 8 in 10 kids. A small change with big impacts.
Absolutely. We are headed towards major outbreaks.
This physician says unvaccinated children could bear the brunt.
That child is at very high risk for being hospitalized, being very sick, possibly even dying.
Over 100 cases.
So just how big can outbreaks get?
These figures show
This epidemiologist shared her team's new modeling exclusively with CBC News.
Once you get down to 60% coverage, that's here with the 0.6, you see a much larger outbreak that can potentially be in hundreds of cases.
In larger communities, low vaccination rates could mean thousands of infections.
If you end up with sustained transmission, Canada could even lose its elimination status for measles, which it's had since 1998.
Modeling can't predict the future, but experts who viewed the projections say we need to get vaccination rates higher now to avoid those worst-case scenarios. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian military has postponed its aptitude test from the application process for dozens of jobs. It also plans to start accepting recruits with pre-existing medical conditions. The move is meant to help boost the bleak recruitment numbers the Canadian Armed Forces are facing. Ashley Burke has the details.
You live for experience and lead by example.
This is one of the videos Canada's military has used to try to recruit new troops.
This is for you.
And here in this room is one of the challenges to keeping them.
This marks the beginning of the testing session.
A 1-hour multiple-choice test known as the CFAT.
You'll be using the computer in front of you to complete this test.
It scores applicants' verbal skills, spatial ability, and problem solving. Traditionally, applicants would have to come into a designated building to take it in person, but many just drop out, says the commander overseeing recruiting.
60% of people who express initial interest in joining the CAF don't come in to do their CFAT.
Just have a read at the question here. So as part of the trial to reverse dropout rates, the military has scrapped the test during the application process for almost 50 jobs. Recruits will only take it after they've joined up, and scores won't matter.
I think there will be more people comfortable to come in and put in the application without while skipping the test portion of things.
Military recruitment is now a critical problem. CBC News reported last week on documents that show Canada's readiness is decreasing. Only 58% of the forces is able to respond if called upon by NATO, leading the defense minister to warn the military's been losing more people than it brought in for the last 3 years.
Frankly, it's a death spiral for the Canadian Armed Forces. We cannot afford to continue on that pace. We've got to do something differently.
Another one of those things, an overhaul of the military's one-size-fits-all medical standards by early summer.
People can serve fully in the CAF with low-risk medical employment limitations that right now would be screened out.
The military says the new trial will allow more people with pre-existing medical conditions to serve. The defense minister said these new trials are a good first step, but more needs to be done to get those recruitment numbers up. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
SpaceX says its mega rocket Starship has been lost as it returned to Earth after completing most of its third test flight. It happened about an hour after it had successfully lifted off from Texas. The company said it lost contact as it neared splashdown in the Indian Ocean. SpaceX says it either burned up or came apart during re-entry or crashed into the sea. No people or satellites were on board. It comes after 2 test flights last year. Both ended in explosions minutes after liftoff. Starship is the biggest and most powerful rocket ever built. NASA has been closely watching. The space agency needs it to succeed in order to land astronauts on the moon in the next few years. Heat is one of the most common industrial byproducts. A green technology is training its sites on capturing and harnessing that wasted energy for actual heating. The CBC's Emily Chung reports.
Winters are cold in our national capital, and for one developer, the steam from this plant is precious heat being thrown away.
How can we harness that and bring it here? It's silly to be dissipating that to the atmosphere and burning gas or something to make heat.
The plant burns natural gas to heat water, to make paper for tissues and paper towels.
We are constantly seeking for opportunities to reduce our energy consumption and reuse the energy from our process. So when ZB knocked at our door, this was perfectly in line.
Just behind him is the tank where it all begins. Heat from the wastewater is extracted in this shed. And then
we collect it and bring it back here to the plant and redistribute it to the buildings, that it's capable of delivering enough heat for 4 million square feet.
It's all nearby. Hot water from Kruger goes to ZB, then that's piped to nearby buildings in Ottawa and Gatineau, including this apartment.
The system is very responsive and very quiet. And in terms of cost, I'm paying about the same cost for heating and cooling than I was paying for at my old apartment.
He loves the idea of using waste heat, and also because it's using local resources.
There's all kinds of energy available in a community. There's waste heat from industry, heat coming off big data centers. There's even warm water in our sewage.
Sewage is a plentiful resource to tap into. And underground here in Toronto, one company wants to heat an entire hospital with it.
We're tapping into the sewer. We're going to be turning on these heat pumps, and this will save the hospital money. Right now, we've got it projected at about $685,000 a year.
Back in Gatineau, ZB has plans to expand. And as communities look for ways to decarbonize buildings and fight climate change, more are warming up to the idea of using what they'd normally waste. Emily Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Parts of Canada will experience a rare total solar eclipse on April 8th. And anticipation is reaching a fever pitch ahead of the rare event. The moon will block out the face of the sun for millions of people to see. But if you want to watch, protective gear is needed. The CBC's Sarah El-Daba has more on how to catch a glimpse and stay safe.
As you can hear, I'm very excited. It has been a long time that we prepared.
The planetarium in Montreal has recently given out over 285,000 pairs of glasses to kids in Montreal schools. And they have more to give away at Jean Drapeau Park the day of its eclipse viewing. People will need to wear them when looking directly at the sun, right up until the moment the moon completely covers it. That moment will be a sight to see without glasses.
It happens directly when the moon is exactly at the same diameter of the sun, and you will be able to see the corona of the sun, which is something very extraordinary to see, in fact.
Looking directly at the sun during the partial eclipse without glasses can damage your vision permanently. This is because the light from the sun is so strong it could damage the retina, the lining at the back of the eye responsible for sending images to the brain.
Unfortunately, there's no treatment for any form of damage done to the retina because of the sun. So avoidance is key.
People should make sure their glasses are almost completely opaque and that they don't have any scratches or tears. Experts say it's best to buy glasses that meet the international standard.
It is essential that you have ISO-approved sunglasses that will block all the harmful intensity of the sunlight. Just using your regular sunglasses is by far not enough.
The American Astronomical Society has an extensive list of trusted North American suppliers, and there are more local sources at eclipsequebec.ca. There are also places offering eclipse glasses for free. Montreal libraries, for example, will be giving them out as of March 18th. Sarah El-Daba, CBC News, Montreal.
Canada's main stock index was down today. Here's a look at the markets as we head to break. For news you can trust, we have the latest on what's happening in your community and a weather forecast you can rely on no matter where you are in Atlantic Canada. I'm Amy Smith.
And I'm Ryan Snoddon.
Join us for Atlantic Tonight,
right after the National.
So less than a week until spring. It's hard to believe.
It is. Thankfully, Mother Nature's getting the memo slowly.
She doesn't always, does she?
No, it's true. And listen, I'm sure we'll see flakes flying right into April. That is spring here in the Maritimes, but definitely feeling a little more like the warm side of spring today.
Turning a corner, right?
Turning a corner, yes. It's a very gradual one, but corner turning we are. Have a look at our viewer picture of the day, and this one taken today. And of course, Keji, not only a great spot inland, but also the seaside part of the national park. And have a look at this.
Oh, isn't that lovely?
Great day for a hike. And Brian with a March break hike with his family there. And thank you so much to Brian for sharing this. Just terrific. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. Okay, so your forecast for tomorrow in, seaside Keji and for inland Keji as well. We are looking at some showers mixed with some flakes. Again, temperatures are going to be on the plus side, so not expecting that we will see accumulation, but those flakes will be mixing in, no doubt about it. Temperatures will range from around 3 to 6 degrees for most of the mainland and Cape Breton. For Saturday, beautiful day.
Wild.
And yeah, looking really nice. The temperatures will really pop into the afternoon as that sun comes out into the afternoon. We will be looking at, let's time it out for you. So there's that system. Off it goes for Friday evening into the overnight. There's our little clear out for Saturday afternoon. And then we're watching that next system that will turn things green on the weather map for St. Patrick's Day, but that does mean rain, so watch for that late day.
Definitely. All right, well, the supersonic Concorde jet may no longer be soaring the skies.
But one of them took a trip by water today to appear in New York City.
Yep, the retired aircraft was transported by barge back to the Intrepid Museum after a major 7-month restoration. This particular Concorde holds the record for the fastest transatlantic crossing by a passenger plane, 2 hours and 52 minutes from Heathrow to JFK.
The iconic needle-nosed aircraft is the only supersonic commercial jet that ever flew. The public will once again have a chance to view the aircraft starting April 4th.
It's pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.